Most of the RV manufacturers are about to make one of the biggest mistakes they've ever made in the history of the RV industry. Welcome to HBRV Lifestyle. They call me the Honey Badger because I give it to you straight and transparent about the RV business. And today is your RV industry update for May 2025. And most of the manufacturers are going to be super pissed off at me because almost none of them are immune from making this mistake here in 2025 that's going to actually affect the business for the next 5 to 10 years. They don't really want me talking about it because, again, it's one of those sensitive situations where we have to balance what manufacturers can control and what they can't control. And there's no one really immune, whether it's Grand Design, Brinkley, Forest River, Winnebago, Thor, etc. This is more than likely going to affect everyone. But before I get to that, I really want to talk about the used RV market. So we're only going to talk about two subjects, the used RV market and, of course, the big mistake they're all going to make. Now, the used RV market is very sensitive. It's a very sensitive subject, especially for folks that are private party buyers and private party sellers. And I'm going to tell you, there's a big gap between what people are willing to pay and what people want to sell their stuff for. It's a huge gap, and that gap keeps getting wider. Okay. Now, let me start with this. I want to get a myth out of the way. What happened during COVID-19 lockdowns will never happen again. What happened with, you buying a trailer in 2016 for $15,000 and selling it for $30,000 during COVID, that will never happen again in our lifetimes. It was a one-time thing. If you got lucky enough to do that, congratulations, but it's not going to happen again. The myth that these tariffs are going to raise the value of your used unit is not 100% accurate. Will it possibly raise the lending value? Very possible. Will it actually raise what people are willing to pay for it? No. Okay, so that's something that's been in contention with folks. So I do a lot of the consignments, okay? I do a ton of consignments. I give a lot of advice to folks when they're buying or selling their coach privately or when they're buying privately because they don't want to deal with a dealership. Totally understandable. Some people will, some people won't. But a lot of private party sellers are listing their units a lot higher than dealerships do. Now, that fluctuates. That's like a seesaw. That's like interest rates at credit unions. Sometimes credit unions are higher than what dealer banks are, and sometimes dealer banks are higher than credit unions. It's a seesaw action that occurs. But there's a lot of folks that bought during COVID and can't imagine losing that amount of money, even though they bought at the very peak of any market. And it's not just RVs, it's also homes, it's also cars, it's also boats. I mean, there's a ton of other things involved in it. So let's set aside the book value for a second, okay? What are people willing to pay? Well, people are not willing to pay what you paid for the unit just because prices may go up or the values may slightly raise on the lending side of things. What it means overall is that the gap between what private sellers want and private party buyers are willing to pay is just going to grow. People are going to look at a Coleman 17B as an example, that 12,995 trailer that Camping World sells, which really ends up like 17 grand after their fees. But still a V. I see something for 12,999 and 4 or 5 months from now, someone's selling that unit for 12,599 because they think, oh, I'm going to save somebody $500 over what I bought it for. Nobody's buying that. Okay. More than likely, they're going to look at something for $8,000, $8,500, $9,000, etc. No matter what happens with the tariffs. So that's something people need to understand, that there's what people are willing to pay and what people want to sell their stuff for. And there's no middle. There's no exact middle. If you want to sell your stuff, are sellers flexible? Are buyers flexible? Yes. Are they 40, 50% more flexible? No. Are they 10 or 12% more flexible? Yes, especially for the right unit. And that's something we all need to have as a come to Jesus thought. That's why if you look at trades that I help take in, or consignments, or anything I talk to a consumer about, I always give them what reality is. And some people go, well, that makes sense why I haven't sold my motorhome. And then some people are like, you're so full of crap. You don't know what you're talking about. You pick on Brinkley all the time. So, I mean, that's what you get a lot of times. You get one of two things. You get the people that are like, oh, that makes sense. And then you get the people that think you're just a con artist, right? So that leads me into a great segue into the biggest mistake that RV manufacturers are going to make here in 2025. And that is raising their prices between 15 and 25% for 2026 year model. Let me repeat that. From what I've been told from industry insiders, this is real. Not only are they going to change the year model starting June 1st, but they're going to pump their prices 15 to 25%. Now, that doesn't just affect the price and the buying ability of the consumer. It also affects what kind of inventory a dealer can carry. So this is a huge mistake because we're going back to one of two things that are going to happen. And I'm going to get into number one, and number two we'll get into later, okay? But number one is going to be very detailed, so you're going to really have to pay attention to this, okay? Number one thing that's going to be affected is the fact that dealerships are going to have to be more selective about the inventory that they buy from the manufacturer. Now that means that their continued struggle of building units is going to continue. So now I can understand a 4%, we as an industry are going to have to absorb a little bit of this tariff because, again, you can blame Donald Trump or the federal government. I'm not here to place blame. You could put all the blame you want on whoever you want. But the reality is the cost to buy materials, including aluminum and steel, both American made and foreign made, has gone up dramatically. So a lot of these manufacturers, instead of, okay, we'll raise the price 4 or 5% and we'll absorb the rest for now, they've decided, at least most of them, not all of them, but most of them have decided to jack the price up 15 to 25% across the board wholesale. Now, that is across the board too, guys. No one's immune to this. Now, there might be a couple of brands that might not do that, but the reality is it's going to be hard for them in their minds to stay in business if they absorb the majority of that cost. But the reality is now they're going to struggle even more. Not because people won't buy them. You guys will still buy them because dealerships are still going to be aggressive with pricing. Dealerships' profit margins are still going to go down, or still stay down, I should say. But here's the reality. The reality is those cash buyers are not going to feel good about the price. They're not going to feel good because dealerships more than likely are going to start charging extra for cash deals because they have to make a profit somewhere. And the general way to make a profit, besides the price of the trailer or the profit from the trailer or motorhome or fifth wheel, is you can finance it and they make a little money from the bank, or you have a trade-in that they can make money on. So at some point, a business has to make profit. I know, what a dirty word. The dealership has to make profit. Oh my God, they should give it away for free. I'm a cash buyer. I should get a better price than anybody. That's not the case. And I've spoken about that at length in other videos. And that's just a fact of life. So the RV dealerships are going to be more conscious about, okay, what floor plans actually sell. Now, the second thing, and this is going to be very extensive, guys, so pay attention. The second thing that's really going to hurt the RV manufacturers is production. And then you're going to start seeing some manufacturers start completely stripping the units of all equipment. We're including microwaves. We're including ovens. We're including stabilizer jacks. What you're going to see is a lot of what we saw in 2007, 8, and 9, where you see a bunch of these travel trailers and motorhomes have no jacks, have no slides, have very few cabinets. They're basically going to make a trailer that is still technically affordable with none of the bells and whistles. And what's going to happen is it's going to backfire on them, because consumers have now an expectation, a minimum expectation of what they expect for a basic camper. Solar, 12-volt refrigerator. Now, that's the RV manufacturer's fault. They're the ones that spoiled the community. That's the minimum. The other minimum is to have 4 stabilizer jacks and a power tongue jack. So if you're going to strip all that equipment off of a trailer or a fifth wheel or a motorhome or etc., really what you're telling the consumer is, oh crap, they're panicking because they're not selling enough or building enough. RV dealerships across the United States and Canada are going to really slow down on what they carry. They're going to start being more picky and choosy of what products am I going to carry. It's no longer going to be the candy stores you're all kind of used to, where you have your pick of, oh, I got 9 brands of this one floor plan in my area. I'm just going to grind somebody down on price. That's not necessarily how it's going to work anymore. You might get to see 3 or 4, and you're going to have to make decisions because there's going to be a scarcity. There's going to be a scarcity of 2026s if the RV manufacturers proceed with this plan. Now, could a lot change in 31 days? Yes, absolutely. A lot can change in 31 days. Is it possible something will change by Memorial Weekend? More than likely not. So the reality we all have to come to is the RV manufacturers, if they stick to this mindset, we're going to see more companies go out of business. More dealerships, more RV manufacturers. Because it would be absolutely 100% fucking stupid for anybody to raise their price 15 to 25% on a recreational vehicle, on a want, not a need. So until next time, remember, RV stands for toolkit and sense of humor, folks. Have a good one.